and we're aiming for 30 minutes.
All right. Well, good morning and good evening as we span 13 time zones. It's my privilege to introduce the 22nd Chief of Chaplains of the Civil Air Patrol, Chaplain, now Colonel, John Reutemann III, who comes to us from his active duty military assignment in Korea. And since I'm on the East Coast, we're spanning 13 time zones. So good morning and good evening is taking place at the same time. And so, Chief, thank you so very much for joining us here at the Chaplain Corps College. And of course, you had a hand as one of our directors for our auxiliary program. And you played an integral role of helping this college really, truly evolve to being what it is. Good morning and good evening, Chief, and thanks so much for being with us here today. Our topic.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning to you, and good morning to you. Good evening to me. I'm glad that through the miracle of technology, we're able to do this, and both of us have this same background now from my old stomping grounds at Maxwell Air Force Base, the Air Force Chaplain Corps College behind us, where you and I both taught in the Civil Air Patrol Chaplain Corps College. So just great to be with you, and looking forward to spending some time together.
Well, Chief, again, thank you so much. And we were very fortunate at the college to have you actually appear in person at the kickoff of the very first Squadron Chaplain CDI course earlier this month. And during the open question period, the very first question our students wanted to know was this rumor that perhaps the Chaplain Corps may no longer have the character development program. And I was wondering if you could speak to that, and maybe why would our students even ask such a question?
Yeah, it's a rumor that's been going around for a while that that some other directorate within CAP, oftentimes the thinking is cadet programs, or someone else might take over character development. And all I told the students, which I'll just repeat here, is the answer is no. It's a solid no. The Chaplain Corps is going to continue to own character development. And as you and I discussed, and I think you even sent it out to your students afterwards, the notion of doing character development is something that was in our original founding, right? That this was something that is not specific to cadets, even though when we think of character development, we think of it as a requirement for cadets to do for their promotion, which it is, and it's valuable in that regard. But the Chaplain Corps owns character development, that this is something for everyone. And I'm so glad to see that the Civil Air Patrol Chaplain Corps College, that they are taking seriously, especially under your leadership as the Commandant, that they're taking seriously the idea of character development for not just cadets, but for our senior members, what we're now calling our adult members, that this is for everyone. And correct me if I'm wrong, but this was in the original founding document of the CAP Chaplain Corps in 1950, correct?
Yes, the 4th of April, 1950. We're coming up on 75 years since the founding document, General Order 350, was published and signed by the then commander that established the Chaplain Corps. And one of the very specific reasons for doing it was to be the teachers of moral things, and to be a moral instructor to our cadet program, which existed at that time. And in fact, for our students out there, Chaplain Reutemann is in fact our very first spots cadet to take on the role as Chief of Chaplains. And maybe you might want to talk a little bit about your role as having gone through the entire cadet program and also being a level 5 now adult member. How did character play into your role and your role as a cadet? How does that influence how you see the importance of our character development program?
Yeah, I'll say this. I remember early on when I first joined as a cadet in 1996. Um, I was in sixth grade or seventh grade. I just begun seventh grade in August of 1996. And I remember at the time learning about this requirement that we had to do. Moral leadership is what it was called at the time. And I will admit that at the time I thought, what's the point of this? Is this just some extra box we have to check in addition to our leadership and aerospace tests and physical fitness tests? But I will say over time, it helped me realize that being a cadet in Civil Air Patrol is more than just being able to academically pass certain tests on leadership and aerospace, but really is developing people of character. And I was so proud to see Chaplain Edco Bailey at the national conference just last month, because he is now the Mid-Atlantic region chaplain. And in 1996, when I was cadet basic Reutemann, he was my squadron chaplain. So it was so cool to kind of see him teach me that. And now he's the region chaplain and I'm the chief of chaplains. But all that to say, it was one of those things that, like I said, originally, I will admit I didn't see a point of it, but then it occurred to me that, we're not in the business of just making smart cadets. We're in the business of making holistically able cadets who are able to think and reason and develop character, right? So overall, I found it very positive, and I'm glad to see that we're still doing this. And like I said before, we're going to continue doing this. It's not going anywhere. The cadet programs is not taking character development. No one else in Civil Air Patrol is taking character development. I was talking with our new national commander and CEO, Major General Regina A, just a few weeks ago about this topic, and she believes that the Chaplain Corps needs to hold on to this as well. That this is part of our domain of spiritual fitness.
Well, as the first chief who came from the Spots Award, perhaps how did character development influence you, and did it make a difference in your decision to become a priest and actually become a chaplain?
It did. Yeah, it did. I've said this. I've shared this before with a few people, but I'll share it here again. I don't think I would have heard my call to ministry if it weren't for Civil Air Patrol. I really do believe that Civil Air Patrol is what got me thinking just about the notion of right and wrong, and really even helped me in my own reversion to the faith. So I'll share briefly. My family was nominally Catholic. My parents were raised Catholic. They were married in the church, but weren't really practicing, and they had their own kind of falling out with the church when I was young. And so when my sisters and I were raised, we'd go to church on Christmas and Easter maybe, but it was certainly not a part of my life, and daily prayer was not a part of my life. And I have to credit CAP with helping me take that part more seriously, and helping me say, well, wait a minute, if you're going to call yourself Catholic, you need to be practicing. And if you don't want to practice that, then fine, go find another religion, but be a person of integrity, be who you call yourself to be. And so again, I think CAP helped me say, you know what, if I need to look into this. And that was my own, not to get too much on a tangent here, but that was a bit of my own story of my own reversion. I call it a reversion. I suppose it was really more of a conversion, but I was technically already Catholic by virtue of my baptism as a baby, but not practicing. And I think CAP got me back into that, and ultimately helped me to hear my call to ministry, and take my faith seriously, and make it something personal for me, and not just something I was raised in. Again, I really credit CAP for helping me to be that person of integrity and say, hey, if you're going to call yourself a Christian, you need to have a relationship with Christ, right? And I've seen CAP do that with people of all sorts of religions, where it's just a matter of being a person of integrity, right? And something that unfortunately a lot of public school systems don't teach. I'm a product of the public school system, and they're very good in other ways, but for me, CAP was what did it for me.
I think it's really interesting and really important and to really amplify that what you just said, because you just described how Civil Air Patrol helped you find your personal path. It didn't give you
Yeah.
a path, it helped you find a personal path. Maybe the seed was already there, but it helped you and gave you the freedom to find your personal path. And I think it's important that our chaplains and character development instructors remember that that's their role, is to help each individual cadet find their personal path and not try to duplicate a path that may not be in their future. So
Right. And as we say, we don't push religion, but we do push spiritual fitness and finding that why. You know, each of us has a why, and finding it and then being able to tap into it. Um, and like you said, you know, our job is not to push one particular path or another. Um, and again, you know, going back to my squadron chaplain, Chaplain Ed Bailey, you know, he's not Catholic. He's a Protestant chaplain, but a holy man who helped me, um, again, find my path. Right. So I've seen so many chaplains do this, not just in Civil Air Patrol, but in my current capacity as an active duty Air Force chaplain, that we don't push religion, but we do push spiritual fitness.
well, if I could tap into that spiritual fitness. You've spoken about it just after Chaplain Pugsley put the stole on you in your first
Yeah.
remarks as our chief of chaplains. That spiritual fitness was important, and of course that's our role, as you said, and for us as members of the Chaplain Corps. Could you talk a little bit more about spiritual fitness and where you see that fitting into your program that you think we need to become here in the Chaplain Corps?
Yeah. So, you know, I think for us to continue to be relevant in an increasingly secular society, and let's just pause there real quick, because sometimes we get caught up about the fact that society is becoming increasingly secular, and we complain about it, and we say we don't like that, and that's fine. We can have our opinions about, is it a good thing or bad thing that society is becoming increasingly secular. But my point as a chaplain, and now as the chief of chaplains, is to say, regardless of why it's happening, or if we like the fact that it's happening, it is happening. It is happening. Our society is becoming increasingly secular, and for us to remain relevant as chaplains and as CDIs, we have to understand that our job is needs to be more than just religious accommodation. Now, let's be very clear: religious accommodation is the primary reason why the Chaplain Corps exists in the military, and by extension in Civil Air Patrol, right? It's because of the First Amendment of the Constitution, and specifically within the First Amendment, the right to freedom of worship. It's because of that principally that the chaplaincy exists in the military and in CAP. And so we're always going to have religious people who need religious accommodation. And so don't mishear me. We're going to continue to do that, and we're always going to have a need to do that. But in an increasingly secular society, we're going to have fewer and fewer people who need religious accommodation, and more people who need spiritual fitness. And again, that's what we own as the Chaplain Corps, to be able to say, what is your why? And I love the definition that the Air Force gives, for spiritual fitness, because in the DAFI, as a former Air Force guy, when you were in the Air Force, we just had AFIs, right? But then as the Air Force took on the Space Force, and we ended up becoming a department of the Air Force that now includes within the department both the Air Force and the Space Force. Now we have DAFIs, right? Department of the Air Force instructions. And DAFI 90-5001 defines spiritual fitness as the ability to adhere to beliefs, principles, or values needed to persevere and prevail in accomplishing missions, right? So that's the Air Force definition of spiritual fitness, the ability to adhere to beliefs, principles, or values needed to accomplish the mission. So for many people, their beliefs, principles, or values are going to be rooted in a religion. They believe in a God who has loved them and who has served them and who is calling them to love and serve others as he first loved and served them. And so our job as a chaplain corps, both chaplains and CDIs, our job is going to be to provide those religious rights. We have a role in the religious accommodation process so that people can continue to serve that God who they believe has called them to step up and to serve. But my point, though, is that everyone has beliefs, principles, and values, whether or not it's rooted in religion. And that's something that I think we can do better as a corps, helping people, step one, identify what their beliefs, values, and principles are, and everyone has them. And then step two, tapping into them. So I would say, and as I mentioned, you mentioned the passing of the Stoll ceremony at the national conference. I mentioned there that, look, even if you're an atheist, we're here for you. The Chaplain Corps is here for you, because even if you have nothing to do with God or religion, I guarantee you have beliefs, values, and principles that get you out of bed each morning, that gets you to answer that phone call at 2:00 in the morning when we have a real world mission, or that gets you to stay after the meeting when you're exhausted and want to go home, but that cadet wants to talk to you. There's going to be something that you need to be able to tap into to respond when you're called to respond. And even if you are an atheist, you're going to have beliefs, values, and principles that hopefully will help you to respond. And they might be a belief in America. It might be a principle that says I need to leave the world better than I found it. It might be I value opportunities for others. So even if God or religion is not part of your spiritual fitness, fine, you still have a spiritual fitness. Everyone has a spiritual domain that they need to stay fit in, just like everyone has a physical domain and a mental domain and a social domain. And according to various other models that the military has and the CAP has, there are all sorts of other domains as well. But none of them matter if I'm not spiritually fit. What's the point of getting out of bed each morning and going to the gym to work out if I have nothing to get me out of bed in the morning, right? I'm not going to go to the gym and work out if I'm not going to first get out of bed. Well, what gets me out of bed? That's my spiritual fitness. So long answer to your question there, but that's how I understand spiritual fitness, as being something for everyone.
And it's a great answer. So taking what you've just said, how do you see that being further integrated into our chaplain corps and what we do and what we provide for not only our cadets, but our adult members as well? Do you see us having more material on that, or sharing more material specifically about what you just said?
Yeah, I think the big thing is we just need to, we as chaplain corps members, both chaplains and CDIs, probably need to do a better job of defining what exactly spiritual fitness is, because there are a lot of people who mistakenly believe that spiritual fitness is just God and religion, and therefore the chaplain corps is not for me. And we need to be able to explain, actually, we are here for everyone. because this understanding of spiritual fitness, this definition of spiritual fitness applies to everyone. So I'd really like to see that happen first, is can we just do a better job of defining spiritual fitness? We're going to continue, of course, to push this in our character development classes for our cadets, and as we continue to push a character development program for our senior members, our adult members. But yeah, I think we just need to do a better job of articulating this in our units, at our commanders' calls, at our staff meetings. We need to just do a better job of explaining what we bring to the table, what we bring to the mission. That really, again, it precedes everything else. No one's going to worry about staying physically fit or mentally fit or socially fit or anything else if they don't have something to get them out of bed in the morning, and that's their spiritual fitness.
And that begs the question, how does spiritual fitness fit in with the word of resilience, since our regulation 80-1 actually does mention the word resilience. Is there a difference, but is there a difference between those two?
Yeah, I think resilience is a product of fitness in any domain, right? Because I tend to define resilience as the ability to bounce back. And I can't bounce back in any domain, whether it's spiritual or physical or mental or social or whatever. I can't bounce back in any domain if I'm not fit in that domain first, right? If I were to go to the gym right now and do a massive workout, but I'm not first physically fit to do that workout, then that workout's going to end up really hurting me, actually, right? I could end up hurting myself at the gym if I go and push myself without being fit first. I won't be able to bounce back. Because when you think about what you do when you go to the gym, is you're causing minor tears in your muscles that then force the muscle to grow back, and when they grow back, to grow back bigger. That's this whole idea of bouncing back, right? But if I'm not physically fit and I go to the gym and push myself through some rough workout, I'm not going to bounce back. I'm going to wind up injuring myself and really hurting myself, and I'm not going to be able to go to the gym for a few weeks, probably, because I'm just going to be recovering. And so when we talk about resilience, I would say resilience is a product of fitness. So spiritual resilience is the product of spiritual fitness. Physical resilience is the product of physical fitness, et cetera, et cetera. So if I'm not spiritually fit, then I'm not going to be able to bounce back, because we're all going to have those 2 o'clock in the morning phone calls. And if I'm not spiritually fit now, then when I get that phone call, and maybe tonight I'll get one, I don't know. Maybe tonight you'll get one. But no matter when we get them, if we're not spiritually fit, then when we go through that, we're going to wind up injuring ourselves, and we're going to not be able to bounce back.
Very good. Well, I'd like to switch to more back on track to what we originally agreed to talk about, and that's our current character development program of Values for Living 2.0. We're now in multiple cycles of our 24 lessons. How do you see our current program of Values for Living 2.0? Is it meeting our needs, and is there something that you have in mind, perhaps to take us into the future?
Yeah, I think it's a great program. I think it is meeting our needs, but I think there's always room for improvement, right? I would never want to say of any program that it is as good as it possibly could be. So it's a great program. You were one of the people who worked on Values for Living 2.0 3 chiefs of chaplains ago, right? So it's a great program. But I will say we part of facing the reality is that times have changed even in the 6 years since that came out, going on 7 years maybe since that came out, and we need to be able to address some of those changing needs of our cadets, of our society, So I'm open. I'll say this: I'm open to different programs and looking at what tweaks can be made. But one thing I am absolutely opposed to, just as a human being and certainly as the chief of chaplains, is change for the sake of change. Um, I don't want to be uh, I don't want to fall into the trap of changing something just to leave a legacy. You know, you see a lot of people do that in the military, especially where they feel like they have to leave their mark, and the way they're going to do that is just bringing in a bunch of change that might not be needed. But that way they can point back and say, "I was the one who did that." I don't want to be that chief. I don't want to be the chief who says, "Oh, I was the one who did X, Y, Z." Um, I'd like to be when my 3-year term is over. I'd like to be thought of as the chief who um, moved the needle and changed things where change needed to happen, but also wasn't in it to make a name for himself and just change things for no reason whatsoever. So, you know, you and I were talking earlier about we were talking offline about the Air Force Academy's new character development program, and it sounds great. And if there are elements of that that we could adopt that help us to more readily prepare our cadets, I would say, great, let's do it. Um, and especially because I'm a big believer in functioning as members of the total force, right? That now that we are Civil Air Patrol is part of the total force definition, let's be better total force members. That's something else I think we can work on in Civil Air Patrol, just overall, not just the Chaplain Corps, but Civil Air Patrol overall, is being better members of the total force. So I think those kinds of resources would be absolutely great to look at and see how we can glean what we can glean from them and bring into our character development program.
Well, Chief, as you evolve and you're even now you're beginning to pick the leadership team for the Corps, where do you see character development fitting into this paradigm? I know you and I have talked offline and at other times about what are the roles of the different staff functions within the Chaplain Corps' national leadership. Where do you see the character development program fitting into your vision of leadership?
Yeah, great question. And this is one of those areas that I think maybe we could do a little bit of change is who owns that, right? So the Chaplain Corps owns character development, but who within the Chaplain Corps owns character development? And you know, as you know, as a retired Air Force 06, um, we have our 2-letter office symbols, right? And of course, the Chaplain Corps, our 2-letter office symbol is HC. But then within each office, you would have, you know, within each directorate, you would have maybe subdirectorates, and so maybe a 3-letter or even a 4-letter. And so right now in 80-1, we have 3 kind of subdirectorates, if you could call it that, right? We have HCP, which is personnel, right? We have HCX, which is plans and programs. We have HCT, which is our information technology. And when I think about character development, like which one of those 3 would own character development? None of the 3, in my mind, seem to be an immediate answer. And something I've been thinking about, and I've talked to a few people about as I continue to kind of build my staff and get them vetted through national, and hopefully, pray God, be able to announce that soon. One of the things I'm thinking about is maybe do we need to add a 4th 3-letter subdirectorate for education, and say maybe this could be an HCE or whatever we're going to call it, but maybe another 3-letter that would own all education stuff. So work with the CAP Chaplain Corps College, where you and I have been working with here, and this is background, but also the educational stuff required for emergency services, but also the education stuff required for cadet programs. So we do a lot of education, and it meets all of these other missions that we do within Civil Air Patrol, right? So part of me wonders if it would be wise to put it there. So something kind of going on in my mind right now. We'll see. We'd have to do an interim change letter to 80-1 to make that happen, but I don't think that would be too difficult to do. But yeah, I want to see one of the offices really kind of one of the three-letter subdirectorate's own education.
I have to say, as a former military staff officer who's very familiar with staffing, it was always interesting to see when I came into the Chaplain Corps how the council was always the form of leadership, was the original form where the chief was in the middle of a wheel with many spokes, and the chief just talked to all the different functional areas, as opposed to having directorates underneath the chief, providing the support and bringing different things up. So it's interesting to see the evolution continue to take place in that style of leadership, away from the council, the idea of councils, to more true staffing sorts of functions. So, yeah. Of course, CREOL was created, the Center for Religion, Ethics, and Excellence in Leadership was created as a think tank slash producer of educational products. In fact, this video is being done under the auspices of CREOL. So that certainly fits well with what you just talked about, as well as one of the options available for you for owning the character development program. You talked about the USAFA program and its characters for leader. We know that the other high school programs, junior ROTC does Citizens of Character. So character is certainly out there in other programs in the greater department of the Air Force. And I know that you're going to be, just said that you're going to continue to look at those sorts of things going forward. And I think that kind of answers what's on the minds of our students, which is, where are we now? What is your vision as the brand new Chief of Chaplains going forward? And I think you've helped us understand your thinking, and we really do appreciate your being with us. Chief, is there anything else that you want to add to our discussions that you think members of this class who are observing and watching this video now, anything else that you'd like to share with them right now?
Yeah, just a word of thanks. I just want to say thank you to all of your students who are watching this and who are participating in this education. I am a big believer, as I know General A is, as our new national commander, a big believer in professional development. And I think that CAP-wide, we probably need to do better, and I know General A agrees with me, on pushing both what in the military we would call PME as well as PCE, right? So we have our PME in the Air Force, our professional military education, that everyone has to go through regardless of your job, right? So on the enlisted side, you have Airman Leadership School and NCO Academy and Senior NCO Academy. And on the officer side, you have Squadron Officer School and Air Command and Staff College and Air War College. And you have all these courses that you have to go through regardless of your job. And that's what we call PME, right? Professional Military Education. But then we also have PCE, professional continuing education, or I've heard other people refer to it as like career field, professional career field education. The idea that that's going to be something specific to my job, and that again, in the Air Force, at this building right here, at the Chaplain Corps College, we do that in the Air Force, where we have our basic chaplain course, and then our mid-level captain chaplain course, and then our major chaplain course, our lieutenant colonel chaplain course. And so they all have names, right? Deputy wing chaplain course, wing chaplain course, MAGCOM chaplain course. And I know at the Chaplain Corps College, you guys, as you mentioned at the very beginning, you guys just stood up your squadron chaplain course, and you already have a wing chaplain course and a region chaplain course, and everything else we do with the CAP Chaplain Corps College. I just think it's so important that our chaplains are getting both sides of that education, that they're doing their PME, which in CAP we wouldn't call it PME, but they're doing those courses to get their level 1, their level 2, their level 3, level 4, level 5, but that they're also doing this chaplain course specific training. So um, I really want to say thank you again to your students for taking the time to do all of that, to say I'm going to become a better officer by doing these courses on this side of the house, but I'm also going to become a better chaplain or CDI by doing these courses on that side of the house, right? That I'm going to advance my education on both sides, both professionally and career field specific, specialty track specific. So yeah, just a big word of thanks, because I know we put a lot of hoops out there, and we make people jump through them because we really want the best. We want the absolute best. And so the people who have put up with that and said, yes, I'll do that, they deserve our thanks. And I'm extremely grateful. And I know that everyone that they're going to serve is going to be better served because of them going through these trainings.
Well, thank you so much, Chief. And perhaps one final question now that comes to mind. What are your thoughts on any words on teamwork or our creation of teams and the importance of that? Do you think that that continues to be an important part of who we are as a chaplain corps?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if this is what you're hinting at, but let me know if not. Um, one of the big teams that we've recently stood up just within the last 6 months at the end of Chaplain Pugsley's term as the chief of chaplains was this collaboration that we have now between health services and safety and the chaplain corps, where we have 3 different directorates, each retaining their own autonomy as separate directorates, but working together for the sake of kind of a holistic approach to serving our members. So I think, yeah, opportunities like that are great. Whatever we can do to collaborate within CAP, and even teamwork CAP with the rest of our total force partners. So as you and I got to do in this building behind us, where we had all 4 components in a classroom together. We had CAP, Air Guard, Reserve, and active duty, RegAF, all 4 components in the same classroom, learning together. So that kind of teamwork as well. Wonderful stuff that needs to continue. So yes, we're gonna continue to do what we do, and we're not going to farm it out to anyone else, but we are going to work together and try to provide the best experience possible to our members.
Well, that's so great, Chief, to hear that and I think you have a singularly unique background, having just come from the school behind us, the Air Force Chaplain Corps College, where you were teaching everyone who was destined to become a Department of the Air Force chaplain, and you got your hands on them first. You were their first role model and first, shall we say, molder of them. And
Yeah.
we're so grateful for your service as an active duty chaplain and an educator of active duty chaplains. And now you're bringing that experience to us and integrating it into your experience as also a duly vetted Civil Air Patrol chaplain. So we have some very unique opportunities and a very interesting way ahead, a new path being crafted for us. And thank you so much for stepping up to the role to be our 22nd Chief of Chaplains. So on behalf of all the students of this college, as well as all the Chaplain Corps members, thank you so much, Chief, for your service and for being with us today and being part of this interview. And we look forward to serving with you and following your intentions during the next 3 years. Thank you so much. And please know that each and every one of us are praying for you every day for your success, not only in the active duty world and for your safety, because you're literally right there in Korea at the tip of the spear. So we're praying for your safety, continued safety there, but also for your success as our 22nd Chief of Chaplains. Thank you so very much, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Chaplain Minor, and know my prayers for you all as well. God bless.
All right.